Today, it's one of my favorite appetizers, snacks, enjoyable, certainly during the warm weather months, Mexican-style shrimp cocktail. One of the things I just love about Mexican shrimp cocktail is it's so bright flavored that it always satisfies me in a way that American shrimp cocktail just really doesn't. The other thing is that it's very, very easy. You can start with already cooked shrimp, but I'm going to show you a very simple way to cook shrimp fresh at your place. This is sort of a no-brainer way of doing it, and I think it's just always really reliable. Okay, so I've got some water on here and it's at a low boil now. I'm bringing it to a higher boil and I'm going to add some salt to it. When you add salt to boiling water, it usually reacts, so I kind of add it a little bit at a time. It'll sort of boil up. Okay, so I'm putting a lot of salt in here, probably a couple tablespoons, because you want heavily salted water. It should taste like the sea. That's the level of saltiness that you're looking for in this. So that's where I am right now. Think seawater when you're, for pasta is the same thing. It's like seawater. I've got this onto a really rapid boil now. These are the small shrimp, which I think are perfect for making a shrimp cocktail. The bag will either say small shrimp or it may say 4160. That's the count that you would get in a pound of them because that's the way they grade shrimp sizes. I'm going to put it all into the pan here. I'm just going to give it a very quick stir here, just to make sure that they're all cooking evenly there. And it won't take very long for this to come back to the boil, and that's the point at which I think they're right. Now, in our restaurant, when we are working with a lot of these small shrimp, we don't use this method. This is a perfect method when you're using like a pound or so of shrimp. That's what I'm working with now, because when it barely returns to the boil, I'm gonna pour all the water off. And then they should be done, and if they're not, I can just put the top back on and let them steam for just a minute, just with the residual heat that's in the pan there. When we're working in a restaurant, we'll have heavily salted water in a pan, and we'll be adding them handfuls at a time, and then using one of these big skimmers. Or spiders, we often call them, to get them out just when they sort of float back up to the top. So it's a very quick cook, but if you want to use already cooked shrimp for this recipe, then you'll need about 12 ounces of cooked shrimp. We're starting with 1 pound of the raw shrimp for this, but they do lose about a quarter of their weight in the cooking process, even though they're cooking in water. Okay, I'm seeing that the water is beginning to boil just a tiny little bit. So we'll say that this has been cooking now for a minute or so, maybe a little longer than a minute, and they're just about ready. You could test the shrimp at this point, but you don't have to, because with these 4160 shrimp, usually just when it comes back to the boil, which it is now, I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to use a little of this cooking liquid now to make my, my sauce for this. And then just taking the top here, and I'm gonna go to the sink and just pour this mixture off here, or not a mixture, it's just the water. So I'll just tip it and hopefully not lose very many shrimp. I lost 1 shrimp into the sink here. That has probably happened to you when you're trying to drain using a lid like that. Now let's check one of the shrimp here and see if they look beautifully cooked. So I'm going to pull one out and just take a little taste of it. They've got that lovely crunchy-like flavor to them. And now to stop the cooking so that they don't overcook, I'm just going to put them into the ice water here and let them cool off very quickly. Okay, now we're going to let those sit there while we make the mixture that is the beautiful Mexican style cocktail sauce. And we're going to start here with some ketchup. So I told you it has a different flavor than American cocktail sauce, and yet I'm starting with the same basic ingredient that goes into the American cocktail sauces. I'm a huge fan of Heinz ketchup, and so that's what I'm using in this. But that's where all of the similarities end. So we'll start here with the cooking shrimp cooking broth. If you don't have that, if say you're going to be working with already cooked shrimp, in most grocery stores they'll sell a little 8-ounce bottle of clam juice. That's what I always buy when I'm buying the already cooked shrimp, and use about 1/3 of a cup of that in here. Next thing is some fresh squeezed lime juice. You need 1/3 of a cup of that. We started with 1/2 a cup of the ketchup there. And now we're going to sort of take it off into this direction that is undeniably Mexican. So we have the lime juice, which you would always expect to have in something like this bright flavored cocktail. We've made it more savory with some of the shrimp cooking liquid there. Now we're going to make it spicy with this vinegary hot sauce. Now I'm using Tamasula because that's what we use in our house and in our restaurant. But lots of people like Valentina, or the slightly sweeter one of the Mexican hot sauces that is called Buffalo. You can use any of those Mexican hot sauces. They have a very specific flavor profile that is very different than American hot sauces. So I would not recommend something like Tabasco in this, because that is a fermented mash hot sauce, and it has a funkiness that you won't find in the Mexican hot sauces. So you want to put 2 to 4 tablespoons, depending on what heat level you want this to be at. 2 will give you a very gentle heat. 4 will give you a pretty robust heat. Now, the next thing I'm going to add is a little chopped white onion. You'll notice that I have it in the strainer, and that's because I rinsed it off after I chopped it to get all of that flavor that we don't like in raw onions, the strong part of it. I've rinsed all of that off, and I'm going to add that to the mix here, and a little bit of chopped cilantro as well. Grab that. I'm going to mix that into the thing here. And then I'm going to put in a little bit of olive oil. Now this you don't have to put in, and most people don't in Mexico. I've been to a couple of places that did add a little bit of olive oil to the cocktail sauce, and I loved it. That was over in the state of Veracruz. I loved it. I thought it added something really special. It adds a mouthfeel as well as a flavor, but it adds a really, really lovely mouthfeel. So I'll put that in there. And then some avocado goes in next. So cutting around the pit and then twisting the 2 sides apart. I'm going to reach and grab a spoon that will allow me to go in and scoop the flesh completely out of this skin like that, and then we'll cut that into smallish pieces. Now you notice that the onion that I cut up, I cut really small. That's because I like to distribute that flavor very evenly through the mixture. I'm kind of doing that with the avocado too, and talk about mouthfeel. The avocado will certainly give you a wonderful mouthfeel here. So I just scooped it out and then diced it into smallish pieces. I'm going to use half of it. You could use as much as you want. And then I'm going to tell you about some other things that you could put into this mixture at this point. I will say that I like to put in some chopped up jicama. You might like that too, because it'll give beautiful crunch, sort of a real refreshing flavor and texture to it. Some people like to put a little bit of chopped up cucumber in here. That's absolutely delicious. Feel free. Working sort of around the base of these flavors that we have in the sauce to embroider it however you want, whatever seems to be attractive to you. These are the things that I like to have in here. Let's go back and look now at these shrimp that are over here. And I think that certainly they're very, very nicely cooled now. So I'm just going to use my hand to kind of get them up out of the, I got to make sure that I don't get any pieces of the ice in there. And just let them drain in this spider here. And then we'll mix those guys into our sauce. I've got a few more of them that I'm going to dig out here as well. And you're done, basically. Now, when you're working with Mexican shrimp cocktail, it may surprise you that most people will serve it with saltine crackers, and everybody loves it that way in Mexico because they don't eat saltine crackers with hardly anything else. Like when you're eating a soup, you don't have saltine crackers with it in Mexico. I personally prefer it with tortilla chips, and it's like that. To me, those things go together so absolutely beautifully that I always reach for the tortilla chips to accompany it. Something crunchy and nice. So you can choose between tortilla chips and saltine crackers. Now, I thought maybe just that half of the avocado was really all that I needed there, but now I'm looking at it and I'm going to use some of it for a garnish on the top, but it's going to need all of that avocado. So I'm going to slice and dice a little more. I'm going to save this little piece here to go on the top and go ahead and chop this thing up. Yeah, it's going to, I just love the texture and the flavor of avocado in this. So just think about what we have in there. We've got the creaminess of the avocado, the crunch of the white onion, the herbiness of the cilantro. And then, of course, we've got the beautifully cooked shrimp. And I will tell you that these will have a better texture than anything that you can buy that's already cooked. That's been my experience. But some people would rather not work with the raw shrimp, so feel free to do whatever works for you. Okay, so let's just look at this now. I've got my little dish. These are often served in little sundae glasses in Mexico. So if you have a little ice cream sundae glass, that would be a wonderful thing to use here. A few more shrimp on the top of it. And our piece of avocado to slice and lay over the top of it. That'll just make it look that much more beautiful. And then we've got some cilantro sprigs, and really just in a flash, you can have an absolutely delicious Mexican-style shrimp cocktail.